Okay. Do you need to put up the screen? Okay. Welcome to the Village Board meeting for July 8th, 2024 at 6:04 p.m. We're here in the Village Hall Boardroom on Main Street at Village Hall. If everyone could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adam, if you would be kind enough to read our land acknowledgement, please.
Sure. Before we begin this evening, we would like to recognize the Seneca Nation on whose ancestral territory we are gathering. The present-day village of Fairport sits on traditional Seneca land. The Seneca Nation, with the Mohawk, Cayuga, Onondaga, Oneida, and Tuscarora, make up the sovereign Haudenosaunee Confederacy. With respect, we acknowledge the people of the Seneca Nation on whose land we now live. We honor their past, present, and future contributions to and stewardship of this land.
Thank you. Megan, would you take roll call, please?
Trustee Wojka. Trustee Banaski.
Evening.
Trustee Mishler.
Here.
Trustee Briggs.
Here.
Mayor Domeratz.
Here. We're going to open Citizens Forum in just a moment. And just a reminder for everyone, if you are here for Citizens Forum, we'll ask that you approach the podium. Megan should have the microphone turned on. You should have signed in on the list with your name and address. When you come up, please state your name and address. And then our guidelines for public comment. The public may speak only during the Citizens Forum. Speakers must be recognized by the presiding officer. Speakers must step to the front of the room, which is the podium. Speakers must limit their remarks to 5 minutes unless a majority of the board allows them additional time. So we ask you to keep your comments to 5 minutes. Speakers may not yield any remaining time they have to another speaker. Board members may, with the permission of the mayor or presiding officer, interrupt a speaker during their remarks, but only for the purpose of clarification or information. All remarks must be addressed to the board as a body and not to individual board members. And speakers must observe commonly accepted rules of courtesy, decorum, dignity, and good taste. Interested parties or their representatives may address the board by written communications at any time, and you would direct those communications to Megan Cooper. It's mac@fairportny.com, and it can also, her address can also be found under the departments and the clerk treasurer's office. So Megan's email address is listed there if you have comments that you would like to send via email or by mail. With that, Megan, who's first on the list this evening?
Dewey Jackson.
Dewey?
Thank you. I'm Dewey Jackson, address 37 West Street. And my comments, I have a few comments about zoning, specifically the proposed updating zoning map.
I'm going to stop you right there. That's not a proposed map. That's a map for you to comment on in the survey.
Well, it says right here, proposed zoning map.
It's a proposal
Yeah, proposal.
for you to comment on, but it's not coming in front of the board
All
in
right.
any way,
Well, I
shape,
just
or
read
form.
here, the reason I said that, this says
Okay.
proposed zoning map.
Okay.
Specifically, the removal of the single-family zoning, replacing it with zoning that will permit up to 3 units per parcel. And so with only 5 minutes, I want to keep comments related to some history, because I think history can be very important directing us where we go. And in Fairport, before there were any restraints on conversion and dividing up homes, this would be many years ago, many of the homes in Fairport were divided and rented out. And then quite a number of years ago, 30, 40 years ago, the village decided some restraints need to be done here. And single-family zoning was implemented for much of the village. And even now, we can see the results. If you go around the single-family district, There are many homes that are multi-unit. The street I'm on, West Street, is fairly short. If you count the houses at either end, there are 5 on our street alone that are multi-unit. Even this document states what's going to replace, or what is in this proposal to replace single-family zoning is the CD2 district. And as it says here, this district already contains many 2+ homes. So there are many homes that way. And if you look beyond that to the other districts, zoning districts in Fairport, like what's currently the RE, we go from many to probably very many multi-unit homes in Fairport. And for example, if you look at Perrin Street, Pleasant Street, Parker Street, which are in these other unrestricted districts, almost all the houses on those streets have been divided and made rental. I want to make a couple comments about the Park Avenue area because I think it's very similar to Fairport. I had lived there, and I think it gives us some very good education. That I lived there on Oxford Street from 1976 to 1979, and the house I was in at the time was divided into 3 units. And even at that time, the neighborhood I was in, most of the houses had been divided and were rented. One of the better-known developers at that time was Raymond Howe. And in the past couple of weeks, I had the opportunity to talk to 2 of the men who worked for him in the mid-'70s, and it was very enlightening. They said the Howe Company bought up many of those homes, divided them all up. They happened to keep them and become the landlords. It was interesting. They said their preferred way of dividing them was slicing them by layers, first floor, second floor, and then they'd redo the attic. And that was the house that I was in. And the city of Rochester must have come to the same conclusion, saying, we need some regulation here. We need some restraint. Because the city has imposed zoning now that the whole eastern half of the Park Avenue area is rated R1, which is low-density, single-family. And the western half is R2, medium density, and it permits up to 2 units per household. And in the same thing there, like with Fairport, if you go to their single-family zoning, which I do, if I go to a restaurant up on Park Avenue, I used to park, there used to be a free parking lot just a little bit west of where Gines is. It's become pay now, and it's cumbersome. So I park on the street. So I've had a chance to walk like Edgerton and Vassar, and that's in the R1 single-family area. And like Fairport, there are many units in there that had been divided prior to the initiation of the zoning. And if you go to the west, it's even more so. Lately, the parts of Dartmouth and Rutgers and Oxford that I've been walking on, almost all the homes there are divided in rental property. And many of them are, right now, 2 units per parcel is permitted. Many of them are, like what I was in the 70s, are 3 units, actually not in compliance. So I bring it up is to, what happens to an area when there's no restraints on the developers? And that's exactly at least what this proposal is doing. And to me, proposing that we get rid of single-family zoning in Fairport is ignoring history in what can happen. It's a downgrade of zoning. It's regressive. It takes us back to the conditions of the 1960s and 70s when developers were in their heyday. So I come to the village board because there are a lot of players in this zoning issue right now But personally, I consider the village board to be, you people to be the most important of anybody, because we elect you. You're our representatives. We make you the stewards of this wonderful village. You're our access to the workings of this. So that's why I'm here tonight, to say, to recommend that this doesn't get adopted. And I ask that, you consider history and consider wisely on acting. I'll make one final comment. It's about this concept of noncompliance. I think for our purposes right now, it's irrelevant. There are people that will say, well, we got to get rid of single-family zoning because some of the homes in there are non-compliant. Well, when the city of Rochester and when Fairport years ago adopted or implemented this zoning, they knew darn well that there were homes that already had been divided up and were non-compliant, but it was irrelevant. I mean, they were implementing zoning for a very, very good reason. And I moved back here 39 years ago. My 39 years here, I've never heard anybody talk about non-compliance. I've been to village board meetings. It's been on nobody's mind. It's not really been an issue. And I think the people that are living in these multi-unit apartments in the single-family zoning area are not staying awake at night worried because they're not compliant. To me, it's a non-issue. So I think if somebody says, well, we got to get rid of single-family zoning because of compliant, quite frankly, I just think that's a wrong answer. And, Fairport is called the jewel of the Erie Canal, and I just hope you keep it that way. Don't lose it for us. Amen.
I just want to update you I'll update everybody where we are with the zoning code update. We're in phase 1. That means all we're doing, there is nothing in front of the board. There is nothing in front of the working team in terms of anything new. All we're doing is asking for public comment, which that period closed about a week ago. And then that public comment will go back with the zoning team, compare it to what we currently have on the books, look for anything that should be updated or changed, and then it will be presented back to you, the public, as well as to the village board. We don't have anything in front of us because there isn't anything to put in front of us. We were just taking public comment, and the board is not taking the public comment on this. The zoning team is through Jill Weidrich and through our consultant. So we are still in phase 1, and until we get to phase 2, nothing changes. All that will happen at the end of phase 1 is the comments will be all compiled and grouped together. They'll be presented to the board along with anything that's being looked at from the zoning code perspective. So that's the update on where we are. While that says proposed, there's nothing in front of us. There is nothing that's being considered. All those proposals were to get people thinking so that we could get feedback from them. So, Megan, who's next on the list?
Jim Tulloch, 136 West Church Street.
Good evening.
Good evening. We meet again.
I was going to say, where's mine? I'm a printer. I just use the other side.
I can't,
It's okay.
as much as I can't help but respond to your comments, Mayor.
Okay.
And I think, and this has nothing to do with what I want to say tonight,
It's okay.
but I have a feeling that the plan, the proposed plan, whatever you want to call it,
There's no proposed plan.
it's called, please don't get into an argument over semantics.
Okay,
I just want to express my concern
okay.
or observation that the plan, whatever it is, came from someplace. It came from someplace. It didn't just materialize out of the air. The people who put it together got some direction. I'll leave it at that. Now, my comments. Fairport is a victim of its own success. The success can be attributed to the quality of the former and current residents and business owners of the village. They have made it what it is today. Was there some master plan? Certainly none that I'm aware of, and I've been here since '78. The village evolved to what it is today. There's nothing homogeneous about Fairport. 1.6 square miles, that is our village footprint, and there are many distinctive and unique neighborhoods. Within the neighborhoods are single folks, young families, old guys like me. They all support each other and accept individual differences. Why? Because Fairport is where they chose to live. They liked it. That's why they moved into it. That's why they moved from where they were, and invested time and money and effort into becoming part of the community. As trustees, your first priority should be to recognize and preserve the efforts of past and current community members. Any changes made in our zoning must support and preserve the current character of our community. You must not use your elected position to support and approve zoning changes that would funnel our community in a specific direction that will not allow it to just continue to naturally evolve. That's why it is the way it is today. Don't mess it up.
Thank you very much. Who's next, Megan?
David Stites, 11 West Church Street.
Hello,
I do.
my name is David Stites. I live at 11 West Church Street. I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts with each of you and with my fellow residents. This is truly an important time for our village, so thank you for listening to all perspectives on these complex issues. I'm here to speak as a village resident and as the deputy chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. My comments this evening are a summary of a letter drafted by several residents and submitted to the village for consideration. While we understand that zoning codes need to be periodically reviewed and updated, it is our position that several of the proposed changes undermine the very foundation of what makes Fairport a distinctive and desirable community. Specifically, I will be speaking about zoning, equity and accessibility, ADUs, and short-term rentals. Regarding rezoning, we are opposed to changing the residential neighborhoods included in the village's presented CD2 zone from single-family to multifamily. There already exists a substantial number of multifamily homes interspersed within single-family residences. This blend of housing options and opportunities has naturally developed over many years. Our concerns related to rezoning include, but are not limited to, potential overdevelopment of already densely populated neighborhood streets, additional parking challenges. Parking spaces per unit can be required. However, residents often park on the streets and front lawns. Infrastructure strain on age systems, and non-owner occupied and investment properties increasing property cost and making homeownership less attainable. The increased number of investor-owned homes equates to a decrease in owner-occupied properties. Fairport has already seen a decline of 3.6% in owner-occupied properties from the years 2021 at 69.9% to 2022, 66.3% per Data USA and the U.S. Census Bureau. Regarding equity and accessibility, rezoning most of the village to multifamily to increase access and equity will not address those issues. Housing cost and affordability are a national crisis. As we've seen in the village, new builds have become high-end properties and costly rental units. Rezoning for multifamily guarantees a risk that those you serve will be priced out of the local market. Affordability should be addressed by public subsidization, OSED working with developers, for example, and not through zoning. Regarding multifamily ADUs and short-term rental options, rather than adding additional multifamily housing to built-up residential neighborhoods, focus should be placed on areas within the village that have additional open space, land, or in buildings, and lend themselves to renovations and new builds, such as the proposed CD4 and 5 zones. We like mixed-use development with first-floor commercial, second, third-floor residential on Main Street. The current commercial industrial zones have the potential to result in the housing options, types, and costs that residents and potential residents seem to be asking for. We do not support ADUs as they do not address affordability nor accessibility. Shelterforce, a nonprofit housing affordability group, reported the following. Most ADUs are built in wealthier communities. The cost of building ADUs precludes use by lower income individuals. They cannot afford to build them, and they cannot afford to rent them. The limited size of ADUs limits the renter type. A smaller structure lends itself to an individual or couple, not a family, and perhaps for a shorter rental period. A property with an ADU becomes less affordable to an individual homeowner and more appealing to investors. Short-term rentals like Airbnb and other short-term options displace local families, taking the properties off the market for prospective homeowners and elevating housing prices. Short-term rentals allow for a business in a residentially zoned district and change the character of that neighborhood. If allowed in the village, short-term rentals should require annual licensing, and the number of those licenses should be limited. There are many local and international communities now creating regulations to take back their housing stock and minimize the damage that short-term rentals have caused. We believe Fairport should take cues from other communities that have chosen to get in front of this issue before it escalates and we lose forever the distinctive community that we have today. While they may not have been formally reported, there are many concerns in the village regarding loud weekend parties and vomit on sidewalks in our front porch-friendly, walkable village. And finally, revision of our design standards will be key in maintaining the village's character as commercial and residential structures are built and are renovated. For example, the public has previously responded to architectural designs of a more historic nature, mostly two-story, a few three-story examples. The examples provided in the current zoning update tend to be of a larger mass and do not reflect those earlier drawings. We must be mindful of the impact that design and usage will have upon our village for years to come. Let us not make the same mistake with our residential neighborhoods that were made with our downtown during urban renewal. There is no going back. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, who's next, Megan?
Would you
Kate Myers
include that
Emery.
for the minutes?
He already sent an email out to,
I didn't get it yet.
David, did you send that specifically to Jill and to me? I know I got a copy of it as well. Pardon? A much lengthier version. I know I have a copy. I will.
Thank you. Thank you, David.
Okay, who's next?
Kate Myers Emery, 19 South Ave.
Hello, this is my first time doing this, so I am excited and nervous.
Don't be nervous.
I think the last time I was in here was on a school field trip, so it was a long time ago and I was much shorter. My name is Kate. I live at 19 South Avenue. I'm also here to comment on the rezoning. I'm a third-generation resident of the village. My children are fourth generation. They go to the same schools that I went to, that my parents went to. And we were lucky enough to get a house on South Ave before the market got so hot. We found a lovely fixer-upper, and we live in a neighborhood that has duplexes, single-family homes, apartments, Airbnbs, and we love that our street is full of families with kids, with young couples who don't have kids, with older couples with empty nesters. And I love that there are families on our street that are there that don't look like my family. I love that my kids are getting to grow up and play with kids that don't look like them. And I wish Fairport was more accessible to these types of folks, to younger folks, to BIPOC families. And one of the cornerstones of the comprehensive plan is to create more equitable housing, which is fantastic because we need that. However, this type of rezoning would not create this type of housing. As we've already historically seen in the village, when homes get replaced by condos and apartments, they're $500,000, they're $1 million. And the average person who is my age, who's from their 30s to mid-40s, can afford a home around $250,000. That median is even lower if we're talking about younger folks, BIPOC families. So you cannot zone for affordability. I recognize that is a thing, but by rezoning for these multifamily units, you're guaranteeing that these folks that you're hoping to serve won't be able to buy these houses. The homes will be purchased instead by corporations who can outbid any young families. I do want a beautifully diverse community. I want my kids to have that. I want my kids to want to come back to Fairport so that they can raise fifth-generation Fairport residents. And I know that that's what you want. You want a beautiful, diverse, accessible, and inclusive community. But this is not the way. And I know that there is a way and that we can figure that out as a village. Thank you.
Thank you very much. See, Kate did it, so that means anybody can do it, because she was nervous, but you didn't sound nervous at all. Great job. Who's next, Megan?
Michael Santorello. Sorry if I mispronounced that.
Said it well, too. Michael Santorello, 10 Old Orchard. Take note of that Old Orchard. I'll come back to that at the end. I just wanted to say how enjoyable the open house was here a few days ago on the Main Street streetscape. I also thoroughly enjoyed the farmers market. The walk really brought to attention a lot of what's going on both in the zoning and the Main Street streetscape. I thought it interesting, the cross-pollination of the two, and how an individual neighbor's letter, communicated better than all the websites you can do. Although I went to the website and I think I almost navigated it, and I felt good about it. And I noticed that Pat Foreman is going to be added to as an alternate on the tree board, because you really need to make sure you have that tree board, because the Main Street streetscape is necessarily going to devastate the trees that are there now. I know that we must have screwed up when we planted the other trees, not planning for them as far as their root ball goes and things like that, but we'll do it right this time. The only other thing I wanted to say is that in reading on the website, my parking street is Old Orchard, O-L-D-E. On the database, they have it O-L-D. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Megan, can you make that correction to the parking notes?
Ginny Mayer.
Hi, I'm Ginny Mayer. I live at 51 Dewey in the village, and I'm not going to talk about zoning. I'm here again to advocate for a plan for bicycle traffic in the village. It's perhaps appropriate today because it's the day that the Cycle the Erie Canal group is coming through, is camping in Parrington Park right now, or not in Parrington Park, at the PCC. So I live on Dewey Ave. It's on the south side of Church Street. I rode my bike here today on Church to Main Street, which is really the most direct way here and the way that I can avoid being on the sidewalk, because this is a nice day. There's lots of people on the sidewalk, including kids on bikes, so it's better for them if I'm in the street. But except for half a block of Dewey, the half block that I ride on Dewey, it's pretty scary the whole way. I don't feel safe. There's lots of areas of potential conflict along this route with car traffic, and me and my 50-pound bike are not really going to come out on top in an interaction with a 3,800-pound SUV. But it also doesn't make sense for me to take my car for what would be a 5-minute bike ride, or what is a 5-minute bike ride. I also just want to point out the obvious. I'm not an athlete. I'm a middle-aged woman who rides a bike that I rode when I was pregnant with my 24-year-old daughter. I'm not anything special in terms of bike fanatic or a bike expert. But I'm not the only person who uses my bike to get to the Village Center. So my husband and I had gelato at the Royal Cafe on Friday night, and we sat at those nice tables that are right along Main Street, and we watched probably a dozen people go by on bikes. Almost everybody was on the sidewalk. There were also lots of pedestrians on the sidewalk who were going from Liftbridge Lane East or from the canal path up to the cannery. So there's lots of potential conflict there. Those cyclists that I saw were confused about how to cross Main Street. It's not really obvious how you do it there. I saw cyclists who were dodging the pedestrians. I saw a preteen who was on a trick bike, who was coming along Main Street doing wheelies, who's obviously on his way to the Parenton Park skate park, but this is like the only safe way that he can come down North Main Street is on the sidewalk. I saw a food delivery bike, an electric bike, going back and forth on Main Street from Salvatore's. We have this incredible state bike trail in our village that many people in the village cannot get to safely. I know families who drive from where I live to Parenton Park to take a ride on the bike trail, the canal trail. I also see that one of the topics on the agenda today is to discuss making parking legal on South Main Street. I know this is not, this is a discussion. But at the Main Street redesign open house, the project manager told me that the project team had heard, quote, loud and clear from businesses that more parking was needed and that street parking was essential on Main Street. And I've seen how fast in the village a response to a need for more parking happens. I mean, we saw the new parking spaces on, is it Parse Avenue, right next to the cannery? That just happened like pretty quick. We didn't have a lot of discussion about that. And now we're having discussion for more street parking. I guess I'm here to just try to be loud and clear for the people who are also using bicycles, that we really need safe routes for bicycles through the village. I don't want it to be put off for some future time when all of the parking needs are somehow magically fulfilled, because I just don't see how that's going to happen. We have to be able to make room for each other, and that's what I'm asking for. I don't want to end on a negative note. I think what you'll find is that if you read the literature about how a community responds when bike routes are made clear and safe, is that it's good for business, it's good for traffic, it's good for noise, it's good for the attractiveness of the street. Reconnect Rochester, which this t-shirt is from, Streets Are for People, is a nonprofit in town that advocates for multimodal transportation. They have lots of resources on their website. I put a web address on here. I'll give this to Megan, but there's lots of information about how bike routes are actually, bike trails or bike lanes for bikes on streets are actually good for business. And I think it would be helpful if the board was educated on that so they could talk about it when people are concerned about maybe giving up some parking for bicycles. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenny. Okay, who's next?
Margaret Frank, 44 Park Circle Drive.
Margaret Frank, 44 Park Circle Drive. Just a couple of really short things. For round 2 of zoning code update, which I know is like September or August, September, I'm looking forward to when those dates will be released. Haven't seen that yet. I'm looking forward for good and thorough information released when those meetings are. The last round was we had the postcards, and I know Jill thought the postcards were going to be bigger, and they came really small. So, just really want everyone to know that they're happening, doing a lot of different ways than you did the first round. I think it would be great. You'll get more public input. Like I said, I haven't seen any dates. And I haven't looked lately in the last few days, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, but how can we easily view the public input? Is that, I know it, you can't.
It's not done yet.
I know it's not done, but so we can't look at what, okay.
I
Because
don't-
you could go and
Until
look.
Jill has it compiled with our consultants,
Okay. so
we won't
can't-
see anything.
Because I know even before, you could see the public
Yeah,
input.
it'll be made available
Right.
when it's compiled,
Okay.
but there's nothing to
Okay.
I just know
I just know
display to
when it was,
anybody right
when
now.
it was open, you could view it
Yep.
But now you're saying we can't.
Well, there's lots of I don't know because the public input period closed last week. What I can tell you is there's more public input than just what was on the web on that survey. So this is compiling all the
Because there was
different.
the survey and public input, so there were like two things.
Right, but there were public comments on the survey.
Right.
There's also public comments that were mailed directly
Okay,
to
okay. So you have other
members of
way.
this board, to Jill. There's also comments that were posted by sticky notes on the board. There were, so it's multimedia. It needs to be put together and
Okay.
compiled, and
Great.
typically what you do is you bucket it, into topics. And then once it's been compiled, it'll get released, and I know you're signed up for Fairport Alerts. I would tell anybody, even if you don't think you got a postcard, if you signed up for Fairport Alerts, Jill sends out so many alerts for
She does.
every single step in this process. After a while, because I get text messages and phone messages and emails, that I'm just like, it's Jill again. I know it's the same message from Jill 4 times. But she will make sure that everybody is notified that it's available to be reviewed. It's just not available right now.
Right.
Not
Okay.
for us, not for anybody.
And there's still, I know you talk about the Fairport Alerts, and I'm on them, but there's still a lot of people that don't know about Fairport Alerts. And I don't know how you let people know that, but remember, 20%, I've been told, people in the village do not have social media.
They don't have to. There's a phone message that you can sign up for, and you'll get a phone call at your house. So, Margaret, if you know any of those people, please share with them. I do when I talk to people. It's right on our website that they can sign up for it. It's also been included in every news. It's also been included in all the email, or not emailed, but the mailed newsletters that we sent out for the last 3 years. Right, but it was in every newsletter for 3 years straight. Who's up next, Megan?
Doug Whitney, 58 Dewey Ave.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor,
Good evening.
village trustees. My name is Doug Whitney. I'm a Fairport Village resident, and I live at 38 Dewey Avenue. I've learned the village board is actively considering making substantial residential zoning changes, which will significantly alter the character of Fairport, in my opinion. The result of these proposed changes, as I understand them, are twofold. First, to downgrade all single-family residential lots to multifamily lots. And second, to permit accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, in all residential lots in the village. I oppose both of these proposals, and I urge the village board to discontinue any effort to implement these proposed zoning changes. As a prelude to my reasons for opposing this proposal, I offer the following personal history of my experience as a village resident for most of my 86 years. Before I was born in 1937, my parents moved to Fairport after my father completed his internship at the Eastman Dental School. The plan was that my father would take over the dental practice of an older dentist, Dr. James Welch. And the plan was my father would take over Dr. Welch's practice because he was planning to retire. My parents' first home in Fairport was really at 38 West Avenue, which was not a house, but rather a commercial brick building with a showroom and a repair garage for a Buick sales agency on the first or main floor. Excuse me. The next building, the next floor, above the Buick agency, contained a dental office and a couple of residential apartments. My father moved into the dental office to practice dentistry. My mother and father moved into the apartment across the hall from the dental office. In today's language, this was really a mixed use. When my mother became pregnant for my younger brother, Steve, my parents decided it was time to move the expanding family to a single-family residence on Nelson Street in the village. And we all moved. We were ultimately a family of 2 adults, my parents, 3 children, and we all lived on Nelson Street until 1963, when Jean and I were married. And after we were married, right, before we were married, I finished college, law school, and 4 years of military service. After I finished my military service, Jean and I needed a place to live and have our first child. We located a vacant apartment on the first floor of a 2-family house at 32 Perrin Street and lived there until our eldest daughter, Susan, was born in 1967, when we bought the single-family house at 38 Dewey Avenue, where we still lived. We bought it from the same Dr. Welch, who coincidentally was the same person whose dental practice my father came to take over 30 years before. Incidentally, when we moved into Dr. Welch's house, which he had built back in the 1900s, early 1900s, he moved into our apartment that we vacated on Perrin Street. Times are interesting. My point in going through this long history is to demonstrate that during the 86 years I've lived in Fairport, I have personally lived in mixed housing, retail, office, apartments, multifamily houses, and single-family houses. Please bear with me, folks. When my parents moved to Fairport in 1937, the typical residence was a single-family residence located in a lot that was 60 feet wide with a minimum number of buildings, one for living and the other for use as a barn or a garage. one of the things that makes Fairport so appealing is its typical lot is a single-family residence on a 60-foot wide lot. There is plenty of room for single families with broad areas of green space like grass, plantings, and trees between the buildings. I fear that increasing density of residents will destroy Fairport's classic identity. I also fear that increasing Fairport's residential density will require significant expense to renovate and/or construct infrastructure for sewers, water, roads, highways, and parking. When you deliberate about this, think about how Fairport looks today and how it will look and feel with the proposed changes. Fairport does not want to look like the village of East Rochester or the Park Avenue district in Rochester. Thank you for your time, your attention. As was pointed out by a previous speaker with whom I've never spoke about his speech or he about mine, you are truly stewards of the village of Fairport. As such, you have a fiduciary obligation to the residents and voters and people who live here. Again, thank you very much. I have copies of my prepared remarks, which I will leave with the clerk, so she may have one, and for one each of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just take those right out. Yeah.
Megan, can you grab his cane right there?
Thank you.
Is he okay? All right. I was going to send you. Okay, who's next?
Sue Roberts, 209 South Main.
Okay.
I'm Sue Roberts from South Main Street. I'm here to talk about a different issue, although I will say that I agree with everything that I've heard said so far this evening. Was mentioned removing the no parking signs on the west side of South Main Street. I know parking is a disaster and that you desperately need the new spaces, and I can absolutely see where this is coming from and expect that it will happen. I would like to suggest, however, that you drive on South Main Street occasionally during delivery time, because if there is a mail truck, a trash truck, a waste management truck, an Amazon truck, a pickup truck with a mower trailer behind it parked on either side of South Main Street, and they do park on both the west side and the east side, it is basically a one-lane road. If they scooch close enough to the curb, you can, with great care, get two cars by each other. If there is a tractor trailer, and South Main Street is one of the most highly traveled roads in the village in terms of trucks, it is a one-lane road. If there is a tractor trailer that's been stopped because of this traffic, then say you have a southbound truck that's been stopped because of the parked vehicle, then you have a very hard time for a car even to get past the parked vehicle and past the tractor trailer to keep traffic flowing. So as you're identifying this, as you're looking at it, go and sit on Balmer or come and sit on my front porch or where you ever would like to during the busy part of the day and watch and see what it's like. And if you really want to know, trash day is Wednesday. So you can come and really get a feel for what it's like to have a big vehicle parked there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who's next?
Bob Cantwell.
Bob Cantwell, 3 Fifth Ave. Couple of very quick comments, I promise. First of all, as it relates to the background for the zoning map that Mr. Jackson referenced, just from a point of clarification, that came about because that was recommended as part of the comprehensive plan that was adopted by the village board. So that map is a part of the comprehensive plan, and legally, the comprehensive plan serves as a basis for implementing and adopting zoning codes. So that's basically just a very quick scenario as to where that draft plan came from. The second thing, relative to, I similarly agree with the speakers that spoke this evening. One of the things that was mentioned in the comprehensive plan, again, that made reference to ultimately zoning is the term neighborhood character and neighborhood preservation. I don't think anybody has really said those exact words tonight, but everybody is kind of implying how important that is. And in the comprehensive plan solicitation of input at that time, one of the highest reasons for new people to live and move to the village of Fairport was the neighborhood character and the character of the neighborhoods in the village of Fairport. So that's I think why the sentiment has been expressed tonight for that. I think just another kudos comment relative to the public engagement for the zoning code update. Jill spoke in front of the board a number of times, and her enthusiasm for having people to express input in their comments and thoughts and ideas about the zoning code update. I think my hat's, sitting back and listening to this, I think that the residents of the village, the 300 or so pieces of responses that you've gotten is just a real credit to not only people here that are willing to show up and speak up, but it's also to the people that have dialed in the input. My also other comment relative to that, as Mrs. Frank had mentioned, is that I would hope that ultimately the comments that you have received would ultimately be a part of some digital format so that people could actually read those comments. So, but again, I think that the opportunity for input has been very much appreciated by a lot of people. I would also just comment that I think that there are a number of people that probably have other similar ideas and for whatever reason haven't really had an opportunity maybe to respond to the survey that was on the website. And I guess my question to the board or to the zoning working group is I assume that if somebody wanted to express additional input through, since we're only through the first step of the engagement, that you could still, there's an opportunity for input similarly to, to be submitted to the board or to the working group or to Jill and all
I'm
of those
sure if
kinds
you
of
send something to Jill, that
Yeah.
she'll make sure it gets included.
Yeah. So,
But
so I
at some
think,
point, they have to say, okay, we have to look at this bundle that we have. But absolutely.
yeah, and I agree with that, but I think that there's also an awful lot of things that people almost can't respond to until they see something to respond to. It's kind of, so when something is proposed for consideration of the working group, then it's an opportunity for people to also respond to a specific,
Sure.
rather than a nebulous concept.
I expect that'll be part of the 2.0 part.
Yep. Switching gears a little bit, I would also like to just comment, because it's a particular hot button of mine, to Mrs. Meyer's comment about the bikeability in the village. Trustee Briggs, a year and a half ago, had, I think it was probably the first meeting that she was sitting, in the position as a trustee, had brought up the idea of the fact that a bike and a circulation pedestrian plan was on the on the list of priorities for the village board to engage in. And I think that, you know, Mrs. Meyer's comment is very well put, that I think the sense of urgency in creating that plan to ultimately decide where appropriate, you know, bike routes should go, I think would be very appropriate as a priority. So she's kind of alluded to the difficulty of just getting from, you know, point A to point B. But so anyway, I just wanted to reinforce, I think, how important that is as a priority for you. So thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Okay, I'll open it up. Is there anybody who didn't get a chance to sign up who would like an opportunity to come up and speak? Okay, seeing none, I will close Citizens Forum at 6:58 p.m. and we'll head back over to our agenda. Thank you to everyone who came this evening to speak and took your time to organize your thoughts and get up in front of the board. We really appreciate hearing from you, and we are really listening to everything that you have to say. All right. So that takes us to the unfinished business portion of our agenda. Item number 1 is a motion by the village board to approve the meeting minutes of June 10th, 2024, the village board meeting.
So moved. Trustee Mishler.
Second, trustee Briggs.
Any questions or comments about those meeting minutes? And I think we were all present for those, correct?
That's correct.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That will be unanimous. Item number 2 is a motion by the village board to approve the meeting minutes from the June 24th, 2024 work session. Those were of the open house that we had, so there wasn't any formal agenda that evening. But that was the open house that we held in this room. And I know you were not here, so it's up to you two ladies to make the motion and the second.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
And any questions about what you saw for those meeting minutes? I think it was just the expression that we had an open house. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody abstaining?
Yep.
Okay, so that'll carry. Which takes us to new business. First item is a motion by the village board to authorize the West Avenue residents to close the street for their annual block party on Saturday, September 7th, 2024, beginning at 4 p.m. Barricades will be provided for a block area, for a 1 block area? Oh, for the 2 block, it should be like 2 block. 2 block, an area of West Avenue from Nelson Street to Prospect Street. Does that sound more appropriate? Okay, all right, well, never mind then. So can I have a motion to authorize the West Avenue residents for their block party
So moved.
by
Trustee.
Trustee Benonsky,
Second.
Trustee Mishler? Excuse me a second.
Bless you. We're already
Sorry
getting
about that.
into the fall
Oh.
block parties.
I thought you were going to make a comment about we're already into allergy
allergy
season. I was
season.
going to say, it never stopped and it never ends. All in favor? Or, I'm sorry, does anybody have any discussion points, anything they wanted to bring up about the block party? Okay, with hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Then that will carry unanimously, and I wish the residents of West Avenue good weather on September 7th. Item number 2 is a motion by the village board to appoint Patricia Fornan as an alternate to the tree board member for the term of July 8th, 2024 through December 31st, 2026.
So moved. Trustee Benowski.
Second, trustee Briggs.
Any questions? Megan, do you know if she's filling a slot, or did they add an extra slot?
I have her term filling the vacant slot right now.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, sort of shifting around, yeah, we had, and I think is there still one more? I think there still might be one more. So if anybody's interested in joining the tree board, make sure you
I have someone in mind.
reach out to.
Send a note to, you can send it to Megan. Ultimately, it will go to Jason.
Yeah.
But you can send the note to Megan, and she'll make sure that gets directed to the right parties for any interviews. Okay, so all in favor of that appointment?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? That'll be unanimous. Item number 3 is a motion by the village board to approve, let me get the right document, to approve the resolution authorizing execution of letter for municipal advisor services. Be it resolved by this village board as follows. The firm Bernard P. Donegan Incorporated is hereby designated municipal advisor to the Village of Fairport. Said firm shall be compensated for its services to be rendered in accordance with its letter of services dated May 28th, 2024. The mayor is hereby authorized to execute and deliver said letter of services, and the resolution shall take effect immediately. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
By,
Trustee Mishler.
I'm having a moment.
Second.
By Trustee Briggs. We'll play the game. Can you get it out before I say it?
Mishler Briggs.
Mishler Briggs. Any questions, discussion?
So this is a switch of carriers, correct?
I don't think so.
This is the same firm we have. They help us when we have our debt issuances, all the requirements surrounded with that. And there's a lot of continuing disclosures for our existing debt that they help us file every year.
Okay.
So they do all the legwork behind the scenes to make sure that we're
Yep, help with
in
the bidding, getting the
compliance
interest
with
bid, yep.
everything.
Perfect.
Anything else? Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you for clarifying.
All in favor? Wait, Tracy, did you have something else?
No, thank you
Okay.
for clarifying. If it was John or Megan, it was like, there was a lot of paperwork there. So it's like, anything you wanna fill me in on, that would have been great.
This is the simplified version that I read. Then all in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? That will carry unanimously as well, which takes us to item number 4, which is a motion by the village board to amend parking guidelines and regulations on certain streets within the village of Fairport and to amend the parking logbook in the clerk treasurer's office pursuant to chapter 500 of the village code. And this refers to South Main Street, no parking west side from house number 120 to Hulbert.
So moved. Trustee Banowski?
Second, Trustee Briggs?
Okay, so we have a map up on the screen of the area that's talked about, which goes from Hulbert to, I think 120 is someplace down near George Street. Trustee Briggs, I'm going to ask you to describe what the
This is all me.
request was for.
And I wish that Sue Roberts had stayed. So this is a letter that I wrote to the board, and I might as well share it with everybody. So this is coming from me. We all know that parking is a very hot topic for Fairport residents. Removing the no parking signs is not the same thing as creating on-street parking, because the road simply isn't wide enough to allow for parking on South Main Street. Eliminating the signage would create a welcoming, friendly environment. So that's where I'm coming from. I've lived on South Main Street for 27 years, and in all that time, there was never an on-street parking problem. The shoulder of the road is less than half the width of a car, or even less than that, which has always been an organic deterrent to street parking. A couple of years ago, no parking signs were installed from Hurlbut to West Church Street to solve a problem that didn't exist, in my opinion. No parking signs on every light post and tree trunk down Main Street for me, created a negative, unfriendly, unwelcoming experience for anyone entering our village. The signs are visual messaging and visual communication. So the human brain is told 10 times in a half a mile. If you're traveling by car or bike, that's 10 times in less than a minute. And you're being told no in bright red letters. A lot. No one particularly likes to be told no. I personally find the signs to be, didn't know I'd be reading this out loud. I personally find the signs to be obnoxious and visual pollution and unnecessary. So the backstory is, the signs went up a couple years ago, and I've been nagging at Manager White since the day I took office to remove these signs in both directions. It is a fact that the police department cannot issue tickets or enforce laws without the no parking signs being posted, and I clearly understand that. However, I believe the signs were installed to fix a parking problem that did not exist and does not exist, and again created a negative environment. A couple of weeks ago, when I spoke to Manager White again, he said, well, the village board would have to change the law to take down the signs, which brings us full circle as to why this item is on the agenda. For safety, the no parking signage near the intersection of Main Street and Church Street would stay. I sincerely believe that by removing the no parking signs does not create parking on Main Street. So that's where it came from. Seeing, one day I pulled out of my house and it was just like, oh my gosh. That's my reaction to seeing all those signs. And my experience for 27 years is nobody parked on Main Street anyway. The only people that do are, when you're moving or if you're getting an appliance delivered or the garbage truck. I am more than willing to open this up for a month or discussion or take discussion from the community. But the intent is, and I do not believe, that eliminating the signs creates on-street parking.
Anybody
I
have
am
any-
looking for character, friendly, historic, welcoming, and
So,
signs are everywhere.
So I am curious. So what I started thinking about when I read the email was if I'm going to take a little bit of a left turn here. Forgive the pun. If we can't enforce the parking regulations without a sign that says no parking, do we need to put signs up that say no parking between November and April overnight throughout the village?
No, they're at every entrance to the village. They're throughout the village.
They are throughout the village?
Yes, they are throughout the village. They're not on every street, but every entrance to this village, every road that leads in here, there is a sign posted that says there's no parking between November and April.
Oh, wow. And that covers it?
And other communities also have code provisions. They have code provisions that will, for example, not permit parking overnight between November and April because of snow plowing. It's not posted in every single street, but it is on the code. It's in the books and enforced. So we are protected in that regard.
So like we could just like basically put no parking here till Church Street, like when you enter, and that would cover it?
So your concern is that that parking is going to begin to happen in that area in the absence of posted signage?
Well, I guess I'm trying to figure out actually exactly how the rule works. And it's because if you only need it at certain spots, then like, I'm confused how.
That's a general overarching.
Right,
for the
I
whole
mean-
village. So there's one set of rules that covers the entire village. You can't, you wouldn't go around and put on every single street. But on particular streets, like I live on East Avenue. On East Avenue, the north side of the street has no parking, the south side of the street has parking. So there are signs posted all the way down the street on the north side. But during the wintertime, there's no parking whatsoever during the hours that are covered by the village from November 1st through April 1st, from, was it like 2 a.m. until, I think it's 2 to 6 or something like that. It's a global law or code for the village versus these individual streets. It's not comparing apples to apples.
Right.
One's a global code, one is an individual street code.
Correct. So with the global provisions, if we're
I went to
applying
law.
something uniformly, we don't need to post that everywhere. And we've prosecuted these tickets in various communities, and the complaint is always, I didn't know that I couldn't park my car on the street at 3 a.m. overnight in the middle of winter, and that's been rejected by the judges that have seen that. Because you're on notice of the law in the code, uniformly as it applies to the entire village. If you have specific streets that you want to regulate, then you would want to put a sign up for that if you're going to specific requirements.
So folks don't see that as like punishing visitors who just don't know?
Well, which of the two laws are we talking
Sorry,
about?
no,
No,
it's
that's
just
okay.
like the no parking overnight in the winter. Because, I mean, you're entering into the village, and you're trying to make sure that you're following the posted speed limit, there's the village sign, oh, isn't that cool? And you miss it.
Well, even
SOL?
if it wasn't posted when you entered the village, it's, if you violate a law that's in our code and you didn't know, ignorance of the law is not a defense. So the answer is yes, you can be cited and you can be prosecuted because there's more of there's a compelling interest. We have an interest as a municipality not to have cars parked in those areas where they could be hit by plows or obstruct plows' ability to clear the streets for the safety of the people using those roads. So those provisions are enforceable, and it's unfortunate if there is someone that happens to just have been traveling into the village, but more often than not, frankly, it's always a resident. Somebody's parked their car on the street, they own the property, but they didn't realize that the law didn't allow it. That's the typical scenario, not usually somebody just sort of traversing and visiting.
And I want to think in the business corridor where you're more likely to have street parking, I think I've even seen signs down there that state the winner. But in huge residential areas, Park Circle, stuff like that, they wouldn't have signs. It's just that we live in the Northeast.
All right. Well, enough wonking out on that.
Did you have other comments that apply to?
Yeah, I was going to say let's come back to the
stick to
topic
what
at
we're
hand.
talking about.
I mean, I think we can. It's probably worthwhile talking to see exactly what the ins and outs of this are. Just because I did have a chance to kind of like eyeball measure the curb to curb, which is 30 feet. And in a lot of municipalities that actually could fit something else on there. So I think there's a chance people do park. Because at least from me doing the math, there is room.
I'm just saying, I've lived there for, 27 years. There was never a parking problem. And as I say, it's not coming from increasing on-street parking. It was come from people saying they get to the top of the hill, they get a frowny face, and then within the next minute, they're told no in red lettering. And they're annoyed by the time they get to Four Corners. So it's more of an environmental sort of, how friendly and welcoming and historic are we?
I get
It's that's where it's coming from.
I mean, it's potentially also, I know there's a lot of speed concerns on South Main. That's another way to help take care of it.
However,
By having no parking signs?
No, by putting
letting
something
people
on the
park on
side.
South Main Street.
We don't want people to park on South Main Street, and historically, nobody ever has.
Adam's saying, though, by adding on-street parking, it would slow down traffic.
Oh,
Or
we're not
something
adding
else.
parking.
That's what you're saying,
Oh, we're
correct?
not adding parking to Main
Is that what
Street.
you're saying?
I'm saying it could be parking, I'm saying it could be a bike lane, I'm saying it could be move the curb. But until we know what we need to do, I think we need to talk about it.
Can I add a couple things?
Sure.
I really appreciate you bringing the topic up because I think that the visual feel and welcoming atmosphere that we send, the message that we send to people is very important. However, if we take down the signs, I think that we will all of a sudden start to see people try to park there. I did talk to Chief about this a little bit, just asked Chief of Police, what is your perspective on this? You enforce the laws. He thought the same thing. He thought that if the signs went down, there would be an increase of people trying to park there, which is, he suggested would be a really terrible thing, which is what I think you're saying. The biggest concern that he had was school drop-offs in the morning and school drop-offs or school pickups in the afternoon. That area, especially the crosswalk, Margaret's in the audience right now, that area closest to the crosswalk at Hulbert, he could envision, I don't know how he had the foresight of thinking of this, probably because he's our chief of police, but what he could envision happening would be parents sort of piling up, waiting, not necessarily parked, but what do we call it, standing? Standing.
Or idling.
Idling to let their kids off closest to the school there. So he thought leaving the signs probably would be best to ensure that people do really truly know that we don't want people parking there, standing there, idling there at all, keeping that street clear. It's already narrow. Not sure if there's another way to get at what I think your main goal is to create the welcoming feel. So I don't know if there's another way that as a board we could improve upon that.
I went out and counted the signs. There's 8 signs from the lower part of South Main Street to Hulbert, and they seem to be, Adam and I had talked about, maybe we could have them spaced out further, but they all appear to be about 50 feet apart, which is the code for the traffic enforcement. I don't see of a way to reduce the number of signs without falling out of compliance with the parking code. And while there's no parking problem there right now because there are signs, believe me, I have signs in front of my house and people still park there. It's a matter, and it makes it very difficult for people to get around the corner by my house. I just see that the village is being opened up into additional problems if you start taking the signs down, which leads to whether you think there should be parking there or not, it leads us to being open to people saying, well, you don't have a sign there, so I'm going to park there. And then there's no way to get them to move their vehicle because we don't have an enforcement mechanism because there's no sign that says there's no parking, which is it's part
I
of
get it, I'm
what we
open
have
to
deal.
it, but as I said,
Can you think of another way to create that same goal that you had in mind, other than taking those signs out? Maybe we think on it, or I don't know if there would be.
I mean,
we can think on it.
Yeah.
I just threw it out there,
Yeah.
and that was my reasoning why. Absolutely not
I
increasing
like your
parking.
goal.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
What did you say?
I said all in favor?
Nay.
No, I didn't ask for nays
I'm-
yet.
oh.
Anyone for this? Anyone opposed? Nay.
Nay.
Are you abstaining or?
Yes.
Okay, Tracy's abstaining. So that will not pass at this time, and we'll move on to the next item.
Thank you.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Item number 5 is a motion by the village board to engage BST and Company CPAs LLP to perform a financial statement audit of the Village of Fairport for the fiscal year ending May 31st, 2024, and to authorize Julie M. Domeratz as mayor to sign the engagement letter when received. Can I have a motion, please?
I have audited the bills and found them to be in
We're not
order.
on the bills, we're
Oh,
on BST.
Oh, sorry.
I'll make a
Ready for
motion.
that. I'll make the second
Trustee
of that one.
Briggs, Trustee Mishler. BST is who we've used before previously as our CPA to perform the financial statement.
Audit of the whole thing. the big
Any
audit.
questions or comments?
No, BST does a great job.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That'll carry unanimously.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. We got a couple before we get to yours. A motion by the village, can I have a motion by the village board, or by the village board to approve budget transfers related to the Village of Fairport 2024-2025 general fund operating budget as itemized in the memo to the Board of Trustees?
So move, Trustee Mishler.
Second, Trustee Briggs.
Any questions or comments?
Not necessarily.
I think it's pretty straightforward what it was. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? That will be unanimous. A motion by the village board to accept the June 2024 financial statements for the Village of Fairport. And we're dropping the second part of the statement. It's just the financial statements for the Village of Fairport.
So moved.
By Trustee Mishler,
Second.
by Trustee Banowski. I think this came separate from the agenda, right? Because I was looking at it.
Yeah, I sent it later in the day, but I posted it to the agenda
Okay.
online shortly after.
Okay. Any questions for Megan about this? Megan, do you have any comments?
This is a big one, May on June.
Yeah, June was busy. Ladies did an awesome job with tax collection. Bank recs went smoothly. You'll see we're considered to have earned all of our tax revenue on day one. I think we've collected just, we have about 100 that are still
Wow.
owed to us, which is typical. A lot more online payments this year, which was surprising, but no, it was good. Most of the expenses are still being booked back to May, so not too many big expenditures related to June yet.
Meg, what do you think the uptick in the online payments are attributed to? Not sure.
What are we in our third or fourth year?
People are getting the hang
Yeah,
of it.
getting
The word's
used to
getting
using it.
out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Banks are getting the hang of it.
Yeah.
It makes it easier on our end for sure. Yeah.
It went pretty smoothly this year.
Great.
Great. Any other questions? With that, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That will carry. Okay, here's your term. I need a motion by the village board to authorize payment of the audited bills.
I had audited the bills and found them to be in order. I make a motion to approve the bills.
I likewise have audited the bills, find everything to be in order. I second the motion.
Great. Any questions regarding the audited bills?
No, we just did them. It's fresh in our brains.
Okay.
Right?
Then, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That will be unanimous. You like that, Megan? That's the new.
We added the language.
We added language to your
be
agenda.
Clarifying with that motion.
Is that still legal, John? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Okay, that will take us to number 9. A motion by the village board to amend the previously approved amount of $60,000 to pay health and dental insurance premiums paid in the month of July to $50,937.72. That was a mouthful. I got that out fast.
So moved.
By Trustee Briggs.
And I'll make the second to that.
By Trustee Mishler. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That'll be unanimous as well. A motion by the village board to authorize the clerk treasurer to pay the health and dental insurance premiums for the month of August in an initial estimated amount not to exceed $60,000 subject to audit and amending authorization for the village board at their regularly scheduled August meeting.
So moved, trustee Banowski.
Second, trustee Briggs?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? That will carry unanimously. Number 11 is announcement and committee reports. Adam, I'm going to start with you.
Well, really light. It was fun having the 4th of July parade. Great seeing everybody out, and had some really nice weather for that. Thanks to Trustee Briggs for decking out the wagon there and getting us all hooked up with the buckets and the candy.
We missed you, Trustee Wojka.
Yes. I think that's it. You know, everybody just keep enjoying the summer. Make sure you keep an eye out for the kiddos running around.
Did you have something from the Parks Department, or did you?
Oh, no, we got a report from the Parks Department, which gave an overview of just kind of things that have been going on. But I think we all got it, so
Yes,
if you had a chance to
it's
check
in
your
our
mailboxes.
Okay.
I have a couple things.
Go ahead.
Okay. Just wanted to reiterate that Cycle of the Erie Canal is here tonight. There's 750 cyclists that have come. So that's really cool. Waldo's in Fairport, if you have heard about this. There's an activity, 30 some odd Fairport and Barrington businesses are participating in this. There's a Waldo hidden inside these different locations, and it's
Over 30, I
over
think.
30, yeah. And it's great. I mean, it's really creating buzz and excitement. People are frequenting these different locations, and just kind of a fun activity. Supporting locals. It's great.
If I could add, I could add on to it, I think that's something that it's a national thing, and you have to be selected to do it. So not every community gets to be involved.
Amy and Jeff at Another Chapter Bookstore
Yeah.
had this up.
I love that. Okay, it's really great. This is just a plug for Fairport Electric. They are looking for a lineman. There is a job opening right now for a lineman, and we need to fill that. So I just wanted to put that out there. If anyone knows anyone, please send them our way. And then I want to give a shout out to just all of the residents that have been actively involved in this zoning code update, and also the Main Streetscape. The Main Streetscape open house, we had a huge attendance to that, and it's been fantastic to see the energy around in our village around both of these projects. So we appreciate it very much. I think that's it.
Trustee Briggs?
Two updates really. The railroad artworks is still out there, so look for that coming soon.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Railroad Street is, there's a group of people coming together trying to make an art co-op and an community art center happening. And it's progressing right along. And also, the Public Arts Committee met with the Partnership Design Committee, and we came up with some ideas that we're exploring with Manager White to get some uniquely crafted benches included in the streetscape. And that's exciting.
Anything else? No. Okay. The gazebo concert series is still continuing across the street on Thursday nights at the gazebo in front of the library. Trustee Mishler and I attended the Office of Community and Economic Development meeting. We'll see if I can remember anything from that meeting. It just seems like it was so long ago.
Sophie business.
Yeah, Sophie was in, is it senior?
Senior opportunity for housing?
Yeah, I think it's.
Independent.
Independent, Senior Opportunities for Independence. They came in, that organization, it's a group of churches. They are currently completing the senior residence over on Baird Road, and they were just meeting with the members of the OSED board looking for any opportunities for future senior housing, small-scale senior housing in the village. And it was just an exploratory discussion where they were just talking to that board about what they do and the history of the organization. And so that happened at that meeting. Jen from the HUD office, so that's under, it's under Section 8 housing. They've continued to add landlords and locations. And the Section 8 housing and senior housing that's getting ready to open, they're involved with the one over at the former Marketplace Mall. So they have some units that are opening over there. And they are expanding their program where they're gonna, it sounds like it's a negative, but it's not. They have expanded their program and filled so many slots that they will be getting, they've run out of funds, and the federal government has come back to tell them that they're gonna run out of funds, which means the federal government will allot them more funds to help more people in this community who need help finding adequate housing. And I think that was the majority of what I heard there. Again, Trustee Briggs, thank you for bringing that wagon. It was a lifesaver in more than one way, and fortunately, nobody had to ride in it. And I want to thank all the residents of Fairport and Perrington for coming out to the parade, even though it was pretty toasty warm. I think it was a good time that many people had there at the parade, carrying on that tradition. I just had a conversation today with somebody who lives in Florida who grew up here. She was a couple of years ahead of us, Trustee Briggs, who just is enamored and loves the Village of Fairport 4th of July parade, and we had to have a discussion about it. So with that, unless there's any other comments, our upcoming village board meetings, there's a village board work session Monday, July 22nd, 2024 at 6 p.m. And then, and I'll call it tentative because I don't know if everybody's going to be in town, so we'll have to make sure that we have enough people for a quorum. And we'll check in afterwards. So don't worry about it right now. We'll check in afterwards. The village board meeting for August will be held Monday, August 12th, 2024 at 6 p.m. And both of those meetings will be held in this room. With that,
Can I test the citizens forum? Did you indicate that you could make occasionally accept comments during non-citizen forum period?
No. But if you have some comments that you'd like to leave with Megan, she'll make sure that they're shared with the board. We are going to enter an executive session to discuss, I need a motion by the village board to enter into executive session to discuss proposed, pending, or current litigation.
So moved, Trustee Banowski.
Second.
By Trustee Mishler. And what I'll explain with that is we will enter executive session, we will leave this room and go into the conference room. When we exit executive session, we will come out and we will officially end the board meeting, but there will not be any business conducted after the executive session. And we'll just come out and the board will adjourn and we'll record those minutes. So can I have, all in favor of entering executive session? Aye. Anyone opposed? That'll be unanimous. And John, I think you're conducting the executive session with us. So thank you all for joining us for the village board meeting for Monday, July 8th. I'm not even sure what day it is today. And we'll see you next time. Any notification about any changes to future meeting dates will be announced via Fairport Alert System, as well as social media and on our website. Thanks. Have a good evening.